Metadata is data about data, and it is absolutely essential for your data to have any meaning. I mean, suppose you're given the following spreadsheet. I mean, this is data. It's a bunch of numbers, right? But if this is all you get, this data doesn't mean anything. So for this data to be useful, we have to give you something more. I mean, suppose we now add in some data. I'm telling you what this data represents. It's a grade book, obviously fictional, but it's grade book data for some class. And I'm now telling you what each column represents. I'm telling you that these are student IDs. I'm telling you that these are homework 1 grades. I'm telling you that these are homework 2 grades. I'm telling you that these are test grades. So suddenly this goes from just completely meaningless to meaningful. But even so, the data I've provided you is pretty incomplete. Like you see, this data has blanks in it. What do those blanks represent? You see, these numbers mostly between 0 and 10, and these numbers mostly between 0 and 10, and these numbers, which all seem to be less than or equal to 100. Suppose I gave you more information, that the 2 homework assignments are graded out of 10 points, and that the test is graded out of 100 points. Well, now 2 things are true. You have context to judge these numbers or to assign meaning to these numbers. You can see that this student seems to be doing really well, for example. And you can spot an error. You can look at this 11 and say 11 isn't a valid value for this column. I'd better fix this before I do anything else. So we ask the student to show you their graded assignment, and we see that that was supposed to be a 10, and we fix it. And we're able to fix it because we have this metadata. And I could give more information. Here's some additional metadata, and now we know how to interpret this blank entry and this blank entry and this blank entry. Of course, they'll be replaced with 0 if they're more than 1 week late. For that to be helpful to us, it would be nice to know what the due dates are. So we can go up to this metadata and we can add more metadata. We can say, well, this was due 12:10, and this was due 12:13, and this was due 12:14. More metadata, once again, making this, which by itself is just a meaningless block of numbers. The more metadata we add, the more meaning this takes on. Now that we've added the due date, for example, we know how much time this student has to turn in this assignment and do this test before those grades are replaced with zeros. So we can loosely break our metadata down into different types of metadata. We can talk about structural metadata, which is things like how many columns are there, how many rows are there, what's the data type in this column? I mean, thinking back to Python, is this an int? Is this a Boolean? Is this a float? Questions like that. And questions like that we can usually extract straight from the data, right? We can have Python look at a table and tell us how many rows and columns there are. Descriptive metadata is in a sense more important because descriptive metadata we can't get from Python or R or whatever our programming language is. I mean, going back to my spreadsheet here, if we don't have this data, we're out of luck. I mean, if we don't have this data, if I erase all that, this is completely meaningless. So the stuff that I had over here that I thought I cut it and could paste it back in, but I guess not. That was largely descriptive metadata. It did also contain data types. It contained the fact that these numbers are integers, but it was largely descriptive. And then there's administrative metadata. And administrative metadata um, overlaps heavily with the concept of data governance and provenance. It's asking, where does this data come from? Who gathered it? How did they gather it? How reliable is the data? You know, questions like that. So, though that's the fundamentals of metadata, and I hope it's pretty clear after this lesson that metadata is an absolute necessity. If we cannot do data analysis, if we don't know what the data we're looking at means.